Hello, my name's Eddie, and here I'm joined by
Marina Chirenkova. I'm from Ukraine, from Donetsk city. Now that territory is unfortunately not controlled by Ukrainian government, and it is identified as the low-intensive military conflict territory. It is UN definition.
Alright, so first I'd like to bring up the most recent event that happened, which was a cyber attack on Ukraine. Ukraine blames Russia for this, and I would just like your opinion on that.
I'm not an expert, definitely not me, but I would like to say that it is quite flattering for Russia. I mean, yes, of course, a lot of very good young generation and cyber experts there, but I don't think it was like that. Everything is much more complicated, and I think it's both fake new information war between those two countries.
So like propaganda and such like that?
Exactly,
alright. So do you think this could be like the start to a large-scale cyber warfare?
Frankly speaking, yes, and I did think about that almost 8 or even 9 years ago.
While still being on the topic of warfare, how likely do you think war might break out between Ukraine and Russia?
It's very complicated even for top political, analytical experts to say anything like that. Frankly speaking, what we have to understand that now it is a big game between Russia, US and China. It's not between Russia and Ukraine.
So just those 4 countries, you think like the rest of Europe will be involved as well with the NATO situation as well?
I would not think that they're going to be really involved, but verbally supporting by words and diplomatic steps, yes, they would support, because it's quite dangerous for, I mean, world now is very fragile. And nobody wants the Third World War at this stage.
Right, and with that being said, there's like 100,000 troops on Ukraine's border with Belarus as well.
And
it's a militarized zone right now, and there's like fuel hospitals being set up. Is that a cause for concern?
No. And Ukraine army is strong, and we are in the same situation almost 8 years.
Oh yeah, right.
When you are talking about war between Russia and Ukraine, that's a very good question, but I would like to remind to myself even that conflict, military conflict, started almost 8 years ago.
Right, because there was an annexation of Crimea.
Annexation of Crimea was
back in 2014.
and in fact, the cause was the revolution which took place in Ukraine.
Alright, now on to the economic side of the war, or not war, but like conflict between Russia and Ukraine right now. Since Russia like really influences the Eastern Europe part, and I heard there was a new pipeline being made from Germany to Russia. Just what is your thoughts on that?
That's money talks. We have to understand, all of us, that politicians always would protect the interests of their own people. And for Germany, that's plus, because Germany is going to be the biggest hub for the gas. For Russia, it's plus, because they're going to open up additional market. For the rest of the small European countries, it's going to be maybe less convenient from the ethical point of view, but you have now to measure whether you're going to be the good guy without gas, freezing in winter, or bad guy as a politician, but your people will be in warm houses. That's basically how it works.
Right, and I see the US trying to like stop that happening, right?
Yes, but US has a huge influence on European politicians and on European politics, geopolitics as well. And US has its own gas, and absolutely fair and normal for US to lobby other people in Europe in order to persuade them to buy this gas from USA, not from Russia. It's okay, because people who were elected or people who run this country as leaders, they must protect Americans, not someone else.
Right, and I've seen with the talks about influence, and China has a big influence on the stage right now, especially on smaller things with the Olympics as well. The Olympics, I know the US is boycotting it with Canada and a few other European countries. Russia just announced that they would join China in this, and they have a really good alliance right now. Just wondering what you are thinking about the Russia-China alliance.
Oh, that's a very smart question. Now I'm going to be very simple. Would you like from me beautiful answer, a beautiful answer, a diplomatic answer, or a realistic one?
A realistic one.
Realistic one. If we will be not politically correct, between you and me, I will tell you. Now, USA is fighting for Russia because they don't want Russia and China to be together. If Russia and China are going to form any kind of union, any kind of trade, cooperation, political, more strong links or other links, even cultural links, if it's going to happen, that means that USA will, as we in Europe say, will lose the lovely enemy. Because USA cannot exist without a proper enemy. In politics, you can't do your job properly if you don't have a good enemy. So for USA, Russia is a good enemy, and for Russia, USA is a good enemy. But if Russia and China are together, for USA it's going to be a too big enemy. Am I clear?
Yeah, that makes sense, except for the Russia and China are like already becoming a stronger and stronger alliance by like the days.
Yeah, I mean, if you read some stuff in history, you know that Russia and China, they have a very long relationship. Different, complicated, but really long. And they have a huge border, very long border.
So then moving on to like the personal stuff. I know you've been in Ukraine and Russia before. Can you explain like the differences, the similarities between the two with like your lifestyle image?
First of all, I was born in the Soviet Union, and that is empire, period. China at this stage is an empire, period. The USA at any stage since they won the independence became an empire. And the difference between Russia and Ukraine are probably that Ukraine is much more European or pro-European.
Or like more democratic, more Western influence.
Don't play with democracy, because it's a very complicated word, frankly speaking. We love freedom because we are slightly different from Russians and from Belarusians. On our territory, we're in the middle of the Europe, and since we were born, I mean, as a nation, everyone would like to have our land, so we sort of get used to fight, and we do understand how to fight for freedom. That's the first statement. The second one, I don't think that we are mature enough to understand what the pure democracy is, or how institutions should work in Ukraine in order to provide a pure democracy. In Russia, meanwhile, people never wanted to have a democracy, because since the Russian Empire, since the first Tsar, the Ivan the Horrible, everything was settled. I mean, that's mentality. Russians are extremely beautiful people. They are talented, gifted people, hardworking people. But they even invented the new word for democracy, our own way of developing democracy. Manageable democracy. That's the new definition of Russian politicians, which was on the surface in 2008. That was the first time when Russia says, you know what, that's democracy, but we developed a new variant of it, and we call it manageable democracy.
And that so far has been quite successful for Russia, right?
Right. As you might see now, Russia persuade the key players to talk to her.
Right. And I'm just going to stop you right here, and we'll continue this on part 2.